Along with my day job running an investment business, I started Tinsley Park Talks, a global networking and leadership platform where I interview industry legends from finance to tech and great thinkers to notable celebrities. In these interviews, we discuss great ideas around investing, entrepreneurship, problem solving, and all other lessons of life. Welcome to another episode of Tinsley Park Talks. If you pay attention to American business, politics, Bitcoin, chances are you know of Anthony Scaramucci, who is also popularly known as the Mooch. If the name doesn't ring a bell, you would most likely recognize his face from TV, Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram. He frequently appears on global news channels such as CNBC, Bloomberg, CNN, talking about capital markets, the world economy, and most recently, the future of Bitcoin. Not to mention, he also served as communications director at the Trump White House and lives to tell the tale of what really happened during his tenure there. My relationship with the Mooch dates way back to 2008, when I was a young college graduate just starting out on Wall Street. In this episode, I will highlight facts about Anthony Scaramucci that I've known for almost 15 years that most people may not really know about. We start with Anthony's humbling upbringing, educational journey to Harvard Law School, playing basketball with President Obama, getting fired, and then rehired at Goldman Sachs to founding two successful alternative investment businesses. We also discuss his journey to the White House and ultimately becoming a believer in Bitcoin and merging his firm Skybridge Capital with the global crypto giant FTX. Mooch, I'm super excited to hang out with you today.
It's great to be here, and I appreciate you having me on. And I got to tell you, you look sharper than ever. I met you 13 years ago, and you look tough and athletic and smart, and you've had an amazingly successful career. So congratulations on that. And I'm looking forward to the conversation a great deal. It's a big pleasure to be on.
Same here. I mean, yeah, we go way back. I've known you before, you exploded on television, and everybody knows you now. So yeah, it's a great day for me to really do this, and it's my pleasure. So really take us back to sort of your Camaro driving, gold chain wearing high school quarterback days when you took dance lessons.
Well, I mean, we're going back 40 years, so I'll set the scene for you. There was a place in my hometown called Dance Finesse. And so if you're old enough to remember John Travolta in the movie Saturday Night Fever, if you were an Italian in Brooklyn or Long Island, your hair was blown back. You had very nice gold chains.
For sure.
And you were driving around in your Camaro with a big power booster. And I was going to what were called discos at the time. But in order to go to those discos and be sharp-footed, I took lessons at a place called Dance Finesse. And so I could do the 5 or 6 disco dance moves of that time. And, that was an absurdity and a ridiculousness looking back on it. I think I cornered the market on Armor All. The Jeep, I was spraying it all over those vinyl seats of mine. So, you could slide all over my car. But I will say this, my Camaro, I don't think dads minded me taking their young daughters out on dates in that Camaro because it had the birth control back seat. You couldn't move in the Camaro. There was nothing to do in the Camaro, But yeah, that was a state of absurdity. It was a lot of fun. Okay. I am very grateful for that experience in my life. And I've had a lot of interesting things happen to me in my career. So what I would say about that period of time in my life, I think it's provided a grounding wire for me. I will say this to you, and we were talking about it the other day, my wife and I can remember March of 1972 very vividly. I was 8 years old, and I remember my mom and my grandmother being super excited about the day. What was that day? They were putting a washer and dryer, a General Electric washer and dryer into our unfinished basement in the house. And my mother thought that was the greatest thing that ever happened because she didn't have to walk with my grandmother to the laundromat to do all of our laundry. They didn't have a washer and dryer, you know? And so to go from that to where I am today, you know, there's a lot of perspective and a lot of appreciation. And frankly, just a lot of appreciation for the common struggles that we all have, you know?
Yeah.
And I always try to be mindful of maids and service people because that was my parents, that was my grandmother. And so I always try to leave extra money in the hotel rooms and, you know, try to take care of the waiters when I'm with them.
Yeah.
I just think it's very, very important. I sort of learned that from my parents.
That's awesome. You know, that's why I always admired you so much. You know, even back in the days when I was trying to get in Wall Street out of college, you seem like a very humble guy. You know, you had a fair amount of success. You went to Harvard Law School, you worked at Goldman Sachs, but you just had this, you know, just this nature about you where people are just drawn to you. And I know you say that sometimes about your, if you're too honest or not, but don't change, man. That's what makes you who you are.
Well, I mean, I think we're in a very aggressive society now. We're in a society that's incredibly judgmental. I would have liked to have thought that my generation, and you know, you're younger than me, Najib, so I hope your generation does better than mine. But when I was a young kid, I thought, okay, my generation is going to help solve these what seemed like intractable problems. And I was excited about that opportunity. But my generation is, you know, not doing that. You know, we become very tribal. We become very stubborn. It's my way or the highway is for most of the generation. Divisive. You know, if you're on one side of the abortion issue and I'm on the other side of the abortion issue, let's breed our brains out. You know, from gun control to abortion. It's not enough for me to disagree with you intellectually. I am a demon as a result of my view. You know what I mean? Or I'm a person that hates America, you know, or this sort of thing. And I'm disappointed about all that. I would have thought, you know, the first name of the country is United. I would have thought we would have figured out a way to come together, but we're not doing that. And, you know, it sucks, frankly. I don't like it. And I know, even though you and I don't talk every day, I know you don't like it either.
Yeah.
What's there to like about that? You know,
I don't like that at all. That's not that. Well, we'll go back to the moment where we used to probably all believe that we had reached a certain point in this country historically. And I want to actually go back to your background first because it kind of connects and coincides with that inflection point. So you say, you know, in your books, you write about light bulb going off, and then you meet this gentleman from Tufts University that your dad was friends with, and then you end up through that relationship, and of course through grades and hard work.
I love.
Walk us through the sort of your Tufts days, the Yiddish literature course you took, and then how did you end up?
I love this part of it because I actually got help from somebody to help me get into Tufts. And Tufts has more or less disowned me at this point in my career because they were very unsatisfied with my Donald Trump career. But I also think they didn't like how honest I was, you know. So there was a gentleman, he's now deceased. His name is Billy Tomaso. He was a friend of my dad's. They worked together. He had gone to Tufts and he put a good word in for me with the Tufts administration, a result of which it got me an interview with a gentleman that's now 88 years old and is still with us and still very bright together man by the name of Saul Gittleman. He was my faculty advisor and he was the provost at the school as a result of his relationship with William Tomaso, or as he was known to me, Billy Tomaso. The reason I bring this up because I think it's so relevant is I needed help and I got the help. And so I don't understand how we didn't figure that out about our society. We all need the help. Okay. Yeah. Those women that were actresses, they tried to game the system. Okay. But then there are people that, you know, their parents give money to these universities and they get in as a result of the legacy situation. And, you know, for me, I don't know. I just think we need to be more open about all this stuff. You know what I mean? So anyway, it was in 1981. Billy got me the interview. The interview went well. I promised the gentleman that whatever my wayward academics were in high school, I was going to sharpen them up and improve them. And I went on to graduate summa cum laude from Tufts University,
Nice.
which led me into Harvard Law School. You know,
Nice. And there's a funny part about Harvard Law School. Your mom used to call it.
My mom used to call it Hartford Law School. She had no idea that it was Harvard Law School. You know, and so we fought about that. We laughed about that. My mother had the map out, Najib, on Labor Day weekend, 1986. She was taking me to the Hartford University campus where she thought there was a Hartford Law School. And I was like,
Connecticut. Yeah.
I said, hey, Ma, it's Harvard. And then she stayed on it. She's like, well, why would they call it Hartford Law School if it's not in Hartford? Ma, it's not called Hartford. But anyway, that was the type of family I grew up in. My parents didn't read. And so, I mean, they could read, but they didn't really read that much. And they are notoriously famous for mispronouncing things, which of course I get in trouble for because I grew up like that. But my mother used to call trauma, and things like that. You know, she didn't really know, you know. Yeah. And so people always tease me about sometimes my verbal pronunciation and my elocution. And I'm always like, yeah, well, you know, you didn't grow up like me. If you grew up as you know, in my podcast, I'm always mispronouncing everybody's name. And I say, well, you know what? I'm an Italian kid from Long Island. Parents didn't, you know, there were no books in the house. I'm sorry that I'm not pronouncing your name right, but I'm doing the best I can, you know?
Yeah, that's too funny. So you ended up going to Harvard Law School, and you actually went to school with Obama the same year, right? And
so it was a different year actually. So he was class of 91. I was class of 89. So I was 2 years ahead of President Obama in law school. Okay. So
you know, in one of the town hall meetings, you asked Obama a question, and you said you fouled him on in the basketball court. Was that really? Did you really foul him, or was it just you just trying to be funny?
I think he was trying to be funny, but I mean, it was very flattering, very nice of him to recognize and remember me. You know, we weren't close in law school. I don't ever want to exaggerate my relationship, but we used to play basketball together. And we had a good time on the basketball court. I respect him. I worked on his campaign the first time because
I remember that. That's when I met you.
Exactly. I was a young person, and my thing was, well, how many people am I going to know that are actually running for the presidency of the United States personally? And he was somebody I knew personally. So I went and raised him some money, and I worked for him. I then went on to work for Governor Romney because I was a more classic dyed-in-the-wool Republican, you know.
Right.
But I don't dislike President Obama. Always liked him. Always felt that he was fair. I can say this to you, and I think you'll enjoy this. I've done more Christmas parties at the Obama White House than I did at the Donald Trump White House. So I think I did three of the 8 Obama Christmas parties, and I did 0 of the 4 Trump Christmas parties. So probably no surprise there.
That's funny. So what I was alluding to earlier about the inflection point is, you know, when, you know, I mean, for a lot of us, I think not just for immigrants in this country, which I am obviously, but just for overall America, there was a sense of unity. All the things that you're saying in the beginning, 2008, I think was just, you know, a historic moment that, wow, we reached this moment of electing an African-American, you know, half white, but African-American president. So yeah, I mean, I remember those days vividly. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you go to Harvard Law School, you're inspired by Oliver Stone, his movie, Wall Street. Like, you know, I did too. I'm younger than you, but I was also inspired by that movie, and that's why I went to work on Wall Street yeah, go ahead.
But let me talk about that because I think it's an interesting part of it. So in December of 1987, in my second year at Harvard, Oliver Stone came to Harvard Square.
Right.
In the Harvard Cinema, which is not there anymore, actually closed down like a lot of these movie theaters. But this beautiful cinema on the second floor. It was, you know, one of those large theaters. They broke it up into a triplex, but on the second floor, which was once the balcony, Oliver Stone and a couple of actors came from the movie, not Michael Douglas, but a few people. And they filmed the premiere. They showed the premiere. And then he took questions after the movie. And it was a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed that situation. Now, I then subsequently, 20 years later, in 2009, when he was doing the sequel.
Right. I remember that.
I was on television.
You had a scene. You're like,
yeah,
shorting a stock or something. It was like
exactly. They reached out to me and they asked me to be in the movie. And I mentioned to Oliver that we had met before, and he looked me straight in the face. He goes, "I have no idea who you are." I was like, I don't remember meeting you.
Cool.
And I remember thinking,
I remember having you have a Skybridge, it was like a logo of Skybridge at the party where Gecko met the new Gecko.
Yeah,
I was like, that was really cool. I remember that.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being in the movie. They also invited me to the Cannes Film Festival. It was the first time and the only time, frankly, that I ever attended that event. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I greatly enjoyed my experience. But I will say this to you, and I think you will appreciate this, and so will your listeners and viewers. Movies are art. They look great. They finish great. They mix in the sound. They cut it beautifully.
Right.
But I'll tell you, to work on a movie, you know, it's not an easy thing. It's a hurry up and wait. Sure. You do the scene 7, 8, 9 times. Even the main actors, you know, they have, you know, they have a lot of work. They got to practice their lines. They got to hit their marks.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy thing to do. And I appreciated that. That was something in my life experience that I did not think I was ever going to do, but I did it. And I will tell you that when I watch movies today, as a result of that experience, I have a different feeling about it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure it helped you later on. We're gonna get there, you know, in growing Solve Conference to what it is. I mean, it's not a movie, but it's a media production on its own, and you have a great team. I'm sure that helps you with it, but that perhaps would have helped you to influence the success that Solve had. This program is in partnership with Crow. For more information, please click on the link below.
Interest gas prices are devastating.
While the world fights uncertainty, Crow will help you embrace it. Embrace volatility. Crow.
So Goldman Sachs, after Harvard Law School, you start in investment banking, real estate, the hottest job at the time. You quickly realize that was not a good fit for you. So then you get fired, you talk about that, and then you get rehired, but this time, was that equity sales that you get rehired into? Because ultimately you end up at private wealth management, right? Yeah. How did that transition happen? I was curious.
Yeah. So that, you know, I was terrible at my first job. I got fired from that first job because I actually sucked at it. But this is another learning lesson for people listening. Don't burn bridges.
Right.
Ever.
No.
Under any circumstances. Do not burn bridges. And so I was very nice to the guy that fired me. He went on to Mike Fascitelli. Yep. He's a former CEO of Vornado Realty. He's now retired. But Michael's a great guy, great human being. And we went on to have an unbelievable 30-year friendship. But he fired me, but he also recommended me for the second job. And so I ended up in the institutional sales area. It was a great place to work. I learned a tremendous amount about the stock market, tremendous amount about Goldman Sachs, equity capital markets, all of these great things. But there was a friend of mine that was moving to Frankfurt, Germany, in the private client area. He asked me if I had an interest in transferring into private client to go work on his team. And so I went and did that. I thought that was a great idea. And then the gentleman that was the senior person on that team and I left Goldman, and it's hard to believe it's 26 years ago now, but in 1996, we left together to form a business called Oscar Capital Management.
Oscar Capital. Yep.
Which we successfully ran for 5 years, and then we sold it to Neuberger Berman,
which was then owned by Lehman Brothers, right?
So no, it wasn't yet owned by Lehman Brothers. So what happened was they were a standalone publicly traded company. And then 2 years after that, after our firm was bought, we were bought in October of 2001.
Okay.
And Lehman Brothers bought Neuberger Berman in October of 2003. And so I ended up going from Goldman Sachs to Lehman Brothers by accident as a result of those mergers. But I learned a lot about both those firms too. And that was a really good experience for me.
I remember you had some interactions with Dick Folk too when you were at Lehman.
Loved him. Have a lot of respect for him. He gave me balance sheet money. Helped me get started at Skybridge. Business.
Okay, that's how it happened. That was my next question. How did you transition into Skybridge?
It's great. Yeah. Great question. So what ended up happening was we went from Lehman. I left Lehman, and Dick gave me $10 million. I had the billionaire investor, Michael Dell. I got $25 million from him. And then I got another $10 million from Merrill Lynch. So we started the business with $45 million plus my own money. And we went on to raise a $330 million fund, which was phenomenal.
Nice.
And life was good in 05, 06.
Right.
Very shaky in 07.
Right.
And then the world came to an end in 2008.
That's when we met, like September of 2008.
Yeah. It was exactly right. Yep.
And
you have a really good memory.
Well, I mean, look, I don't mean to sound like a fanboy, but like my family knows how well I know you and how much I've admired you. Like, obviously I've seen your rise over the years. Like, I've known you 15 years now. So I take genuine interest in learning about you, Mooch.
Well, it's very sweet of you. And but I don't know if you remember this, but you came to one of my YPO presentations in 2018 in Houston.
So I came and visited you once in 2015 when I was in New York at your office. And actually I'll post that picture here. And then you invited me to one of your book talks at the YPO event right here in Houston, the Grand Duca Hotel. So that was the last.
It looked like a Camelot, it looked like you were going back into the medieval times in that hotel, right?
Yeah, it was a really cool hotel.
Yeah, I like that hotel. It's very, very trendy.
Yes, it was. So yeah, and so you said Skybridge was almost no bridge at the time.
A few times,
and that's when I moved back to Texas at the time from New York. I was like, let me get out of here. Wall Street's no street for a while. So everything worked out. But then fast forward 2009, you took a risk. And one of your partners, I can't recall his name right now, but you guys decided that you want to throw a party in Las Vegas. And that's how SALT was born. Want to take us back there and maybe wrap that up with your fund-to-fund acquisitions with Citigroup later on.
Yeah, I think it's another example of entrepreneurs shooting in the dark and hoping and praying that they hit a target. So I was at Seton Hall University many years ago, and a very nice kid. He got up, he said, "Mr. Scaramucci, could you please explain the brilliance and the strategic vision that you had to start the SALT conference?" And I looked at him, I said, "Well, I wish it happened like that. It actually didn't." I said, "We were running out of ideas, and I thought we were going out of business, and a result of which I was very frightened about what we were going to do. And I made a decision that, well, maybe if we're going to go out of business, I would end up as a third-party marketing company as opposed to an asset management business. And I thought, okay, well, I would probably need a conference business if I'm going to do that. And then because of the global financial crisis, you may remember many of these firms got money from the
TARP, right?
They got the TARP money from the U.S. government.
Right.
A lot of these firms were like, oh, I'm
right.
I'm not allowed to do a conference in Las Vegas. And then
You're
President Obama.
If you're from Wall Street, you're a pariah at the time.
And I think President Obama basically, and it wasn't his fault, but he was just basically, okay, cut back the excess.
Right.
It's not the time to have a conference in Vegas. But when that happened, Najib, just think about the maids, the porters, the bellhops, the waitresses and waiters that are middle-class people in a town like Las Vegas. And so the town was devastated. Yeah. And we had this big opportunity to go there. So we did. We started a conference in the city of Las Vegas in 2009, March. And, the actual conference itself, we announced the conference in March, but the actual conference was in May. And it turned out to be a huge success and a very big home run for us.
And the mayor of Vegas supported it, right? At that time?
Yeah, he did. Oscar Goodman. I got the key to the city. And try not to laugh. My mother still has the paneling from the 1970s. Won't let me take it off the wall and sheetrock the walls again. But on her glass table, circa 1977, is the key to the city of Las Vegas. If you go into my mother's house, you'll see it right there, which is sort of fun, Yeah. But I did get the key to that city as a thank you for putting that conference there. We did it there for 10 years. We've done it in New York now twice. We've done it in Singapore twice.
Right.
We've done it in Tokyo.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that. I knew you did it in Abu Dhabi. I didn't know you did it in Tokyo also.
Yeah, 2014.
Okay.
We did it in Tokyo. I actually brought Dr. Bernanke there. That was a great trip for us. Great time.
Nice. Cool. All right. I'll fast forward to let's talk about Hunt and Fish Club. You started this restaurant, and this is around the time when you had this political ambition bug going. So take us to those evenings at Hunt and Fish Club, and then how did you end up in DC?
Well, the Hunt and Fish Club was basically an idea for one of my buddies. We had invested it with Justin Timberlake in a barbecue place on the east side. It did well for a couple of years. Unfortunately, when the 2nd Avenue subway went in, we had to shut it down. We lost our business. You couldn't even get into the restaurant. So we ended up shutting it down, but it iterated into the Hunt and Fish Club. And so the Hunt and Fish Club is a great steak, seafood, and pasta restaurant on the west side. It's on 125 West 44th Street. Right. Open for about 6 years. Food is good, very well rated restaurant. Great for the theater district. We're actually opening up one at LaGuardia Airport, which I'm super excited about. Cool. And that was one of my buddies who's a good friend of mine. He asked me to be an investor. He asked me to help him grow the business. And so, of course, I did that with him, and it's worked out. But again, this is the things that happen in life. We were planning on record profits and a record year. We had closed the books in 2019.
Right.
At a time when it was absolutely spectacular. Right.
Yeah.
And we were about to give a distribution to people. And then we were told by New York City that we needed to close our restaurant down, and the entire city was going into quarantine and a lockdown. And unfortunately, we didn't have any outdoor space.
Right.
So that restaurant was closed for 16 months. And, it was devastating to the restaurant. We lost some of our best people as a result of that. We are subsequently rebuilding the business today. It's doing well.
Good.
But that's the stuff that you don't see happening, right? Life happens to you. You're planning something else. We were planning on a huge planning on a huge year in 2021, and it turned out not to be at all.
You say that many times in this book. Well, you can plan whatever you want. Goodbye, Gordon Gekko. But it never always goes the way you hope for it to be. By the way, you always talk about people don't have your book. Nobody buys your book. It's all in your, where do you put it, in your garage or in your storage room? But I got all your books, man. Look, got the Gordon Gekko.
Very nice. Very nice. You're a good man. Okay. You and my mom could be the only people that have actually either read or bought these books, other than me, of course. I always tell people, I always tell people these books are international bestsellers, and if you don't believe me, come into my basement. You know what I mean?
So, Anthony, you had this political bug that bit you. Help the viewers relive your journey in politics, starting with Romney to Walker, and then Jeb Bush to how you ended up in the Trump White House.
Listen, I I was with Governor Romney in 2012. In 2016, I had built a relationship with Reince Priebus. He was the RNC chair.
Right.
He was from Wisconsin. He was very close to a guy who was the governor of Wisconsin. His name was Scott Walker. Scott was running for president.
Right.
And so they asked me to work for Scott. And I said, yes. You know, I was friends with Reince. And I went to work for Scott. Scott got dumped out of the race. And so I rotated into Jeb's campaign because that was more traditional, where the more traditional Republicans were. I wasn't taking the Donald Trump campaign seriously.
Right.
I had a meeting with Donald Trump. The meeting went well. We had known each other for a period of time. No one's ever friends with Donald Trump. I'm not suggesting that. If anybody tells you they're friends with Donald Trump, they don't understand the relationship. You're an accessory of his until he decides he doesn't need you anymore.
Right.
And that's, if you look at his life, that's exactly how he's operated throughout his life.
Yeah.
And so I made the mistake to go work for him. And that was a mistake born from ego. I had worked for Scott. I'd worked for Jeb. He's a charismatic guy, Donald Trump. He convinced me to go work for him. I will confess he was very exciting. I learned a lot on that campaign. And then he did something, frankly, Najib, that none of us thought he was going to do. He won the election. And so when he won that election, the world got flipped upside down. I got named to the transition team. I worked very hard on building that sub-cabinet level personnel for him to the best of my capability. He offered me a job. And then this is sort of the ugly side of politics. I didn't realize that Reince Priebus and I were not friends. I thought we were on the same team, that we were working together. But, you know, he was ultimately an adversary of mine. But I didn't feel like I was an adversary of his. He felt like I was a rival, and he was doing everything he could to try to stop me from getting that job. He was leaking things to the press. He put an Oppo file together on me.
Yeah.
And he did some very nefarious things. And so I told Trump, you know, this guy's a bad guy. When you want to get rid of him, call me. I'll take care of it. And I did. I got rid of Priebus and Bannon. Of course, I got my ass fired the same week as them.
Yeah.
But, you know, listen, I made a mistake. I owned the mistake. I never told anybody that it was anybody's fault other than my own. General John Kelly, who fired me, has become a personal friend. We're going to see each other soon. I do.
Another example of not burning bridges.
Yeah, of course. No big deal. That happened. I got fired from the White House. I moved on. I spoke out against him because I thought what he was doing was terrible for the country. And so I did speak out against them. You know, that's my opinion of the situation. If he's running again, I think it'll be very sad for the country. I'm not really sure if that's the right thing for us. But having said that, you know, what's the big lesson of everything that we're talking about? There are so many things outside your control. You're better off just trying to control the things that you can control, stay healthy to the extent you can, eat right, go to the gym, try to have a balance in your life, hang out with your friends, hang out with your family members, you know, take work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. You know, Mel Brooks has a great line. He says, relax, Najib. None of us are getting out of here alive. Okay.
That's right.
And that's one of my favorite lines. I think I put that as one of the opening quotes in one of the books that I've written. Just relax. Nobody's getting out of here alive. We're going to be here for a brief moment. I think we're here for many different reasons, but one of them is to enjoy each other. And so let's try to do that to the best of our capability.
For sure. No, I learned a lot from you, from the way you handled a lot of the mistakes we all make, and you own up to them and that you made. And that's respectful, man. Not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people can they can talk about ego, but they can't actually remove that neurotic ego and differentiate that from the good ego to neurotic ego. And I think you did a great job through example. So I appreciate that about you, and I respect that about you. This program is in partnership with Nesh. For more information, please click on the link below. Did you know that your company's most valuable assets are the knowledge stored in your experts' minds and the content they've created over the years? These assets form the foundation of successful teams. When experts go on vacation, move teams, go on parental leave, retire, or resign, your teams find themselves in the dark, resulting in onboarding delays, quality loss, burnout, and drop in customer satisfaction. Nesh revolutionizes this for you. Nesh turns subject matter expertise into subject matter avatars to preserve this knowledge. Nesh connects all of your company's content, turning treasure troves of data and knowledge from your experts' minds into precise, searchable answers. Nesh is made for simplicity, where you can ask a question in natural language. It's just like interacting with a colleague. She improves continuously to become the ultimate subject matter expert for your organization. With Nesh, use your knowledge as a superpower to bring innovative products to market, grow business blazingly fast, and provide an extraordinary experience to customers. Unleash the power of your enterprise's most valuable asset with 24/7 available subject matter avatars. So Mooch, can we go talk about the crypto transition, right? So you really, I don't remember you talking about crypto before White House. It was sort of after the White House thing. 2019, 2020 is when you really kind of got into the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. Can you tell us why 2020 is when you went all in?
Yeah, so I learned a lot about it when I, believe it or not, while I was in the transition, entering the White House, transition team, meeting with Treasury officials, even some people in the White House, and became clear to me that the blockchain was something I needed to take more seriously. So after I got fired, I went back to Skybridge. I came back to this office and I bought the URL skybridgebitcoin.com. And then I had a checklist, Najib. And what was on my checklist? Number one, is Bitcoin scalable? Will it reach 100 million or so wallets? Number two, is Bitcoin storable? Can I store it somewhere? Let's say I'm going to put 9 figures of my client's money into Bitcoin. Can I store it somewhere safely? And then the third thing, how did I feel about regulation in the US? Was I okay with the regulatory environment? I made the decision that I was, because Bitcoin's deemed to be property, and a result of which property in the US is sacrosanct. You know, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. The judicial system in the US dates back to the Magna Carta, 900 years of legal precedent. And it's decidedly on the side of people's inalienable property rights. And so since the IRS said that Bitcoin was intangible property, I thought we'd be okay. I eventually believe that it will be fairly regulated, and the legislature on it will be regulated in a positive, or as close to positive way as possible. And once I got my arms around those 3 big things and got comfortable with them, we made our first investment in Bitcoin, and we put money in there. I guess it was October, November of 2020. Our price points were in the 16 to 19,000 range. You know what I mean?
I do recall that. Got it. Okay. And so, we know Bitcoin today is a store of value. We heard, the argument that it's like digital gold from you, Mike Saylor, and many other proponents of Bitcoin. But how do you defend the skeptics that say gold and Bitcoin have decoupled in the last couple of years or a year and a half?
Yeah, well, listen, I say it can be digital gold. I think that's where Michael and I differ. And I love Michael. I think he's a brilliant guy, and I have enormous amount of respect for him. But I say that Bitcoin is still an early adopting technical asset, a result of which it will be digital gold, but it's got to have 1 billion wallets. It doesn't have that right now. So we just have to be patient, So when technology is adapting early on, there's a lot of skeptics and a lot of doubters. There were people that were making horseshoes, and they were making carriages. And they said, this horseless carriage is a fad. There were people in the 1990s, Bill Gates was one of them. He said, the internet is a fad.
Right.
Don't take it seriously. He, to his credit, when he realized he was wrong, he shifted gears and developed an internet strategy. So the point I'm making is that I don't think we're there yet. I don't think that we are in the zip code of digital gold or inflation hedge. So therefore, when it decouples from gold, when you're going through what is the worst financial conditions since the global financial crisis of 2008, the worst stock market activity, first 6 months of this year, Najib, the last time we've seen market activity like that was in the 1970s. And then the third quarter, okay, we had terrible stock market activity. July, August, and September were three of arguably the worst months as well. Bitcoin right now, without regulatory clarity, to me is a risk asset. It trades like a risk asset. It decoupled a little, believe it or not, in the month of September. It was only down 3.7% in the month of September when the stock market, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ was down about 10%. So eventually, I think it will have those properties. It'll have some properties of non-correlation, but just not right now. And it certainly won't, in my opinion, until you get more regulatory clarity.
Got it. So that's the store of value. What about the medium of exchange? That's what everybody wants to know, right? Is it going to replace the dollar in some way, or are we going to have like a Bitcoin dollarization? I've seen some of your episodes with folks you've talked to. Can you talk a little bit about how do you see this medium of exchange concept becoming a reality and the adoption process?
There's been some adoption. The Lightning Network is such where it's creating some adoption. And I do believe that you're going to see more transactions. There's a McDonald's in Lugano, Switzerland that just announced that they're going to accept your Bitcoin for payments for Big Macs and things like that. Right. And so it's right. Trickling in. It's not massive adoption. Right. But that's also because you don't have clarity on regulation. And so I believe what the Lightning Network, which is batching these transactions and moving them more quickly, right. I believe once you have regulatory clarity, you'll be in a situation where these transactions will proliferate. Listen, it's a better product. If I have a horse and a buggy and I can go 8 hours a day at 20 miles an hour, or I have a motor car that can take me across the United States in a couple of days and I can move it at 70 or 80 miles an hour and it doesn't tire out, I can put gasoline in it or electricity in it to allow it to keep moving. Which of the two is a better product? And the answer is the second one is a better product than the first one.
For sure.
Eventually, if you have a hover car that flies, well, you know what? That's going to be a great product. And that will probably replace some of the land-based cars, So to me, the Bitcoinization, if you will, is happening because it's just a better product. I can transfer money peer-to-peer without a middle person. So therefore, I can cut out all those fees. You want to talk about the Hunt and Fish Club? You and I go there. Yeah. I can pay them with my Bitcoin or my US dollar stable coin, and I can pay them directly without going through American Express or Visa.
Right. Completely get it. Totally agree.
That's where it is. That's where we live,
The technology aspect of it, completely agree. It delayers a lot of the fat and whatnot. But what about the sort of, the decentralization notion of it, going away from our traditional central banking system? Like, you brought in Neil Ferguson a couple of months ago, and I read his book, Ascent of Money. I know you read it too. We know the history of the central banking system and how it's intertwined in the global economic system, financial system. And Bitcoin, in many ways, philosophically, challenges the status quo. Do you think the adoption of that is clear, or how do you view it? How do you view that happening? Do you see it a completely different, completely decentralized system, or is it somewhat of a centralized
question? It's a good question. So I want to be thoughtful about the answer. I guess what I would say to you is I think a hybrid is eventually going to exist. I'm not saying going to tear down the entire banking system or tear down fiat currency, but I think that these protocols, these layer one protocols and Bitcoin itself will be used in in these settings. I do believe that,
Got it. Okay. Quickly, how do you view the intersection of crypto and the Web3 for people that have no idea what Web3 is?
So what I would say to people is to do what you do. I would look up on the internet as many YouTube videos as they can find interesting and listen to people talk about it, whether it's a TED talk, a Michael Saylor talk, a Michael Novogratz talk, a Ross Simmons, from NIDIG. I would go to any of those places to try to learn about Web3.
Okay.
And I would also, to the extent that it's available in your area, try to visit universities or try to visit with speakers. If you see something where there's a live speech going on somewhere, I do a lot of public speaking at different college campuses, as you know, or YPO events and things like that. I'm happy to do those things. And I would tell people to do that. And that will get them up to speed. And lastly, open up a Coinbase account, and buy a small piece, buy $100 worth of a coin that you like, and that there's nothing like owning a little bit of something that sharpens your mind and sharpens your focus. And so I would recommend that as well.
Great. Now, you're a big proponent of Algorand. And I just found out this morning that you wrote a new book on Algorand.
I did. Yeah. I just wrote a recent book. It's called The Genius of Algorand.
Yeah.
And
tell us about it. Tell us about your interest in Algorand.
Listen, I have a relationship with Silvio Macaulay, the MIT cryptographer who won the 2012 Turing Award. We did a lot of homework on that. We established a fund related to Algorand. We probably own, 150 million or so algos in that fund. We're believers that protocol is scalable. It's wickedly fast. It's decentralized. So it takes the pressure off of any ideas around centralization. That's another great feature of Bitcoin. And so I think Algorand is eventually going to be a platform that's used by institutions. I don't think it'll be the only platform, but I think it is a important layer one protocol. And so, my next book will probably be on Solana. I don't know if you've heard of Solana, but I think Solana, Solana has a lot of great technical features as well. They have a great marketing team. They have a great community. They built a very robust profile. My colleague and now partner, Sam Bankman-Fried, owns a very big piece of them. And so I'm excited about that as well.
So congratulations on the partnership with FTX. That was last month, the September was announced.
Last month, yep. Yeah, they bought a third of Skybridge.
Right.
We have a very big, healthy 8-figure balance sheet now, heading towards 9 figures. And we're excited about, I'm excited about the future. Yeah. And when you met me, I was in my mid 40s. I'm now in my late 50s. And I'm as excited about working today in my late 50s as I was in my mid 40s. And that's so awesome. There's a big opportunity ahead. And I think I like to tell people, just get up and go, that's and awesome. When bad things are happening, don't play the victim, recognize that happens in life. Bad things do happen.
Right.
Najib.
Right.
It's not a perfect life. And you have no entitlement. You can't expect things. Your expectations are low and your gratitude is high. You're going to do very well in life.
Thank you, Mr. Scaramucci, for that message. So what's the 5-year plan for Skybridge? Now you're with FTX. Like, are you guys going to continue to acquire other?
Well, I hope so. We'll have to see. I mean, I can't read Sam's mind, but I like our partnership. I hope we can get closer together. He has an option to buy the remaining shares of the firm over the next 3 years.
Okay.
If he were to exercise that option, I hope he would consider having me stay on and work with him in some kind of senior relationship capacity.
Okay.
Which I think, I don't want to say for certain, but I'm pretty sure he would do that. And I think that he's going to build, in my mind, the Amazon of Web3. He's going to have a supermarket and a trading facility, and over the blockchain, he's going to trade stocks and bonds. In addition to crypto, he'll have robust venture capital and private equity, as well as core asset management strategies. And at age 30, he's worth several $1 billion, probably 30 or so $1 billion. I think he will be one of the legendary figures in American business or global business over the next 15 to 20 years.
The JP Morgan of crypto, as they call it. Was that you who coined that, by the way?
I did, yeah. I did coin that.
Nobody gives you credit for that. I thought you did.
Right. Yeah, I coined that in the Bloomberg article because, I'm a student of history, as you are. And I remember the panic of 1907 where there was no central bank. Right. And of course, there's no central bank that's going to help the cryptocurrency markets bail. Yeah. And so he's bailing him out himself. So, but that's okay. I don't need credit for that. You see, that's another beauty of life. Okay. You can get anywhere you want in life as long as you don't care who gets the credit.
Right.
If you're focused on getting credit or scoring points, it's not as healthy for you as it is in winning. Derek Jeter was the captain of the Yankees for a reason. He was really focused on his teammates, and he was focused on the scoreboard. He wasn't focused on his personal statistics. Right. I think that's the reason why he's so loved and respected by Yankee fans and his fellow teammates.
Yeah, that goes back to the topic of ego we talked about just earlier.
Control your ego, man. Got to control your ego. I've made, and most of my mistakes in life, unfortunately, have been born from a lack of ego control.
So. Too funny. So are we going to see a presidential front runner made out of Italian genes in our lifetime? AKA Mooch, are you running for president anytime soon?
Well, my wife would kill me. I mean, I'm running for re-election in my marriage. You know what I mean? I'm not running for president anytime soon. But here's what I would say to you.
Yeah.
We need some people that are solutions-based and practical and less ideological. Right. And unfortunately, that fever still exists in our country right now, and we don't have that.
Right.
Ron DeSantis is Italian, partially Italian, but I don't like him sending immigrants from the border and shooting them up to Martha's Vineyard. Okay, liberals are hypocritical and they're elitists. I got that message, and I know a lot of liberal hypocrites. So I'm not saying that they aren't that way. But what about those men and women who are real people that have families, and if you outwitted them and got them to sign a document to have them go to Martha's Vineyard, I don't think that's necessarily fair or right to do things like that. So look, we're in a great country. We're a compassionate country. We need leadership that is compassionate and less stunt oriented. And if we have that type of leadership, we're going to excel, and people are going to love being here again, and they're going to love the revitalization of the country. But if we have this stunt orientation to play for the cable news channel cycle, I think it's terrible, and I don't like it.
Last question is, any prediction on Bitcoin price?
So I've been dead wrong. So do everything in the opposite of me. I think Bitcoin's going to 300,000. I said it would be at 100,000 by the end of 2021. Man, did I get that wrong. So I do think I'll be right over time. But listen, we have to get out of the current economic situation that we're in right now. Once things stabilize, could Bitcoin easily trade into the $50,000, $70,000 zone? Once there's more clarity on regulation, I do believe that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Right, brother. Najib, it's always great to see you. You're looking sharp, my man. You're going to get the best dressed in Houston. Okay?
I could never look as good as you ever, so I can try.
You're going to get that award, my man.
Take care.
Bye-bye.